Headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the Tories' anti-woke candidate Kemi Badenoch has become the latest to exit the leadership race, leaving Liz Truss as the only remaining hopeful for the right wing of the party. I'll explain why now is the time to rally around Super Liz in my digest next. Plus, after a meteoric rise to finish a very respectable fourth place in the contest, could Kemi Badenoch be a Prime Minister of the future? I'll debate that with my superstar panel at 10 tonight. I'm joined by former Daily Star editor and current columnist Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Suella Braverman similarly put together an excellent campaign in her battle for number 10, and in an exclusive interview I sit down with the Attorney General to discuss where the Conservatives go from here. It's important that we have a Prime Minister that doesn't sign up to this ideology, isn't it?
In my view, it is. I think I do see Penny as the woke candidate, informed by the position she took last year on that bill. I think it was a no-brainer.
So find out why, like me, she's saying in Liz we trust at 10:15. Nigel Farage will also give his prediction on why. On what really Kemi Badenoch's departure means for the race to become PM at 9:20. And while the rest of the media fixates on the final three of Sunak, Mordaunt and Truss, are any of these candidates actually an improvement on the man already in office? That's right. In tonight's clash, and this has been inspired by you, I'm asking, who do you want to be Prime Minister? And you'll have the opportunity to vote for Boris. Joining me to debate that one at 9:34 at 5, former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, Conservative peer Baroness Jacqueline Foster, former Tory MP Jerry Hayes, and Conservative commentator Alex Dean. Staying with the outgoing PM, was he right to warn yesterday that Brexit is under threat from Labour and an insidious deep state? Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider on that at 9:50. Also coming up, Britain endured its highest ever temperature today, with the mercury reaching 40.3 degrees Celsius. But why is our future King Charles taking on the role of climate change propagandist?
And as I've tried to indicate for quite some time, the climate crisis really is a genuine emergency, and tackling it is utterly essential.
We'll debate if the Prince of Wales needs to go for a cool down and stop wading into politics yet again at 10:30. But not to be outdone, Prince Harry produced his own virtue signalling drivel to the UN yesterday as he accused the US of contributing to a global assault on democracy and freedom. Well, top Republican commentator and former host of The View, Meghan McCain, says enough is enough from the Duke and Duchess of Woke. She's uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, why are chicken dipper sellers Birdseye now peddling vegan propaganda?
Don't we have them sometimes?
Not sure.
Is it because you fear change and you're scared to try something new? Because if no one likes it, it will be remembered as the night Mum made that thing.
No, but Birdseye should be very scared because I'm certainly never going to be buying their products again. We'll explain more on that in the Media Buzz. You'll also get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers as they drop. And as ever, a new Greatest Britain and Union jackass named before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. So it's a case of bye-bye Badenoch. This certainly isn't the last we've seen of you. But the battle for number 10 is now down to 3. Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss will have the best no-bias analysis of the trio of Tories competing to enter Downing Street, plus representatives for all candidates, including the Attorney General Suella Braverman, who ran herself but is now convinced it must be a case of in Liz we trust. My brilliant superstar panel is here too. They haven't let the record temperatures scare them away. They're not working from home. Dawn Neeson, former editor and current columnist of the Daily Star. Actually, she's delighted the air conditioning's broken in the studio because Dawn loves the heat. Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, back with me too. And so too, the author and journalist Rebecca Reed. It is a spicy show. I hope you're cooling down wherever you are. With all of the latest on that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Well, the top story tonight on GB News, large fires have been ravaging parts of England amid today's record-breaking temperatures. Major incidents have been declared by fire brigades in London, Leicestershire, South Yorkshire and now Buckinghamshire. And residents of Wennington near Dagenham in East London had to be evacuated from their homes as around 100 firefighters tackled a blaze that spread to residential areas. At least 2 people were taken to hospital after suffering from smoke inhalation. Frank Chaundry, who lives nearby, spoke to GB News about what happened.
We dashed upstairs to look out the bedroom window, and we could see it was in the village, Wennington village, or near it. But it turns out it was a few cottages this side of it. And we're about just over half a mile from it. And it was scary, the amount of flames and smoke.
Well, it's official. Temperatures in the UK reached over 40 degrees Celsius for the first time today. The Met Office say a provisional reading of 40.3 degrees was measured at Coningsby in Lincolnshire. And red extreme heat warnings continue for millions of people in England, with amber warnings for most of Britain. The heat is causing major disruption to transport networks, and there are currently no trains running out of King's Cross, London St Pancras or Euston, with a limited service running out of London Marylebone. Hospitals have been affected too and forced to scale back the number of planned surgeries. And the London Ambulance Service says it's answering around 400 calls an hour from patients experiencing heat exposure. Politics now, and Kemi Badenoch is out of the Conservative leadership race after a ballot by the 1922 committee today. The former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, secured the most votes today, with support from 118 MPs. The Trade Minister, Penny Mordaunt, came in second with 92 votes. And the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, secured 86 votes. The next and final ballot among MPs takes place tomorrow, where candidates will be whittled down to the final 2. Full coverage of that on GB News. Some public sector workers are to receive their highest rise for more than 2 decades. Over 1 million NHS staff, including nurses, paramedics and midwives, will all receive a £1,400 annual pay rise, with the lowest earnings to receive as much as a 9.3% rise. Eligible dentists and doctors will receive 4.5% and police 5%. But the cost of living and wages are falling at the fastest rate since records began. ONS data shows paychecks dropped by 3.7% over the 3 months to May when compared against inflation. And grocery bills have also increased by over £450 over the last year. Retail research group Kantar says the increase comes after food and drink inflation hit the second highest level on record. Dog food, butter and milk, the fastest price increases in that sector. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News this evening, where now it's time for Dan Wootton Tonight. The
The United Kingdom now has a clear choice about our future. a high-tax, big state approach from the former Chancellor and Boris backstabber Rishi Sunak, who has taken the UK's tax burden to the highest it's been in 70 years, or a low-tax, small-state Thatcher revolution led by the highly competent Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, who has the most experience of any serving cabinet minister and stayed loyal to Boris Johnson until the end, even posing there she is in the front row with the PM after his final cabinet meeting today. Of course, former members' favourite Penny Mordaunt remains in the race, but her momentum with MPs has stalled after a week of damning revelations about her selective memory on trans ideology and woke politics. And today, the anti-woke warrior Kemi Badenoch was eliminated after a valiant campaign that has seen her transformed into a household name within a fortnight. So while it's not going to happen in 2022, mark my words, Badenoch is a future Conservative Prime Minister. Her unflinchingly brave challenging of the MSM narrative and everything from critical race theory to net zero has made her an asset to the party, and it should have secured her one of the great offices of state under the next leader, whoever that may be. Of course, the issue with a Sunak versus Truss runoff is that it shows just how out of touch the Conservative Party has become with its members, who are going to be denied the opportunity to vote on their favourites, Mordaunt and Badenoch. In fact, even polling released this morning showed Badenoch thrashing Sunak in a fantasy runoff. What's become even more clear is just how opposed the members remain to handing a billionaire, US green card holder and tax riser-in-chief the keys to number 10. He's losing to Mordaunt by a margin of 51 to 37. And this is more spectacular, actually. Truss, her commanding lead over Sunak amongst Tory members. They vote for the next PM 54 to 35. So there's so much for Sunak to turn around, but still the MPs back him. Here's what Attorney General Suella Braverman told me in the last hour about why she's convinced Truss must be the next Prime Minister. The Spartan Brexiteer in the process, and almost immediately after being eliminated, you swung your support behind Liz Truss, which was very significant in this process. Of course, Liz has absolutely become a proponent of Brexit, but she didn't vote for Brexit. So that endorsement from you really was a signal to the Brexiteers in your party that we can trust Truss when it comes to Brexit. Why do you have that faith in her, given that she voted Remain?
I've worked closely with Liz during her time as Foreign Secretary principally, but also when she was International Trade Secretary. And I've seen close up that she is very much committed to delivering on the Brexit opportunities. She is wholeheartedly committed and devoted to resolving the issues relating to Northern Ireland. And I've really seen that she's a big champion for Brexit. So for me, her actions and what she's done in government and how she's used her roles in government have persuaded me that she is the strongest advocate for Brexit on offer.
And that's convincing, because we've got to remember Suella Braverman, she is one of the Spartan Brexiteers in the Conservative Party. She believes in Brexit more than most. So while the establishment of the Conservatives, you know, the grandees and the former cabinet ministers who love appearing on the BBC and Sly News, they can tell us as much as they want that Sunak would be the best Prime Minister. But I would argue that he's almost certain to lose to whoever the MPs put him up against. While Mordaunt has many impressive qualities, absolutely she does, I believe that person must be Liz Truss, the Thatcher of 2022. But to respond now, my superstar panel, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. Thank goodness, Rebecca Reid, you got over your obsession with working from home. You know, you're not so
every
terrified
week. Where is
like
this
all of you
coming
other
from?
lefties who just want to stay in your little bubble.
I mean, I did stay in the house all day until it got cool in the evening, and then you sent me an air-conditioned car to bring me here. So haven't been like breaking up gravel on the side of the road.
Well, it's not an air-conditioned studio tonight, is it, Dawn?
It's
You're loving
lovely.
it.
I'm loving this temperature. It's perfect. I will try and break in.
Sweating up a storm. But you know what? I actually loved the weather. I loved the weather. Obviously, I'm very worried for the people who are impacted by the fires and everything, but my goodness, it was just beautiful to have some hot weather, good vitamin D. I was all for it. Calvin Robinson, big developments in the Tory leadership contest tonight. Kemi Badenoch, we're going to talk about much more later in the show, but we've got to start with the headline tonight, that it is looking increasingly likely that this is going to be a Sunak-Truss runoff, which isn't going to impress a lot of people in the party, is it, Calvin?
No,
who
it's
really
fascinating.
loved Mordaunt and loved Badenoch.
This disconnect between the parliamentarians and the membership. The membership were massively behind Kemi Badenoch, and now they're supporting, it seems, Liz Truss or Penny Mordaunt. But the parliamentarians still want to push Rishi Sunak. He doesn't have a chance, whoever he's up against. So it looks like we will have another female Prime Minister from the Conservative Party again. So the lefties want to continue playing their identity politics. They want to hold up a mirror to themselves. But the red wall is a threat. The red wall is in danger because depending on who we select out of those three, depends if the Conservatives will keep that area of the UK.
Who do you think would do best in the red wall? Mordaunt?
It's difficult. It really is. I don't know. I'm with you in that I think Liz Truss is the best option of the ones we have available at the moment, but I think Kemi would have held on to the red wall. I'm not convinced any of the others can.
I mean, look, Dawn, it is a shame. I'm not going to, look, right from the start of this race, I have been very pro-Liz Truss because it felt realistic that she would get to the runoff. But Kemi Badenoch, wow, she impressed, and she would have been inspirational, a transformative Prime Minister.
I like Kemi, and I think she did particularly well in the last debate, the ITV debate. I thought she was strong, she was feisty, she wasn't slick like Rishi, she wasn't wooden like Liz, and she wasn't woke. She was,
like
in fact,
Penny.
Yeah, like Penny.
Or not, who knows? Hard to tell at this point, isn't it?
I know, but I mean, she was the opposite of woke, wasn't it? I thought she was, I mean, considering she's only 42, although she comes across younger than that, I thought she was strong, she made her points well, and like you, Dan, I don't think she's right for now, but I really hope whoever does get this job, that they give her a strong cabinet post, because I think she's brilliant and I think she'll go far. However, I just am a bit nervous with who we're left with.
Well, you know, Penny Mordaunt, I think she'd be good in Scotland against Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah, but you can't.
As the leader of the Conservatives in Scotland.
Maybe we do a job share. Maybe we have them all left and they all have their little bits and sort of like Penny does Scotland and Rishi does rich folk.
Like a coalition.
Yeah.
A lovely, lovely coalition.
Rebecca
Between
Reid,
the Tories, Rebecca. No one else.
Rebecca Reid, I obviously invoked Thatcher because...
That's all we do when we talk about it.
Truss is so inspired by the former great Prime Minister.
Yeah, she's like, oh, it's a bit...
You think it's tacky to
I do
invoke
think it's
Thatcher?
tacky.
Why?
I think it's like when they get in the papers Princess Diana's ghost to say what she thinks about Brexit and stuff. It's like she's dead, she's gone, she doesn't know what an iPad is. She's not relevant to this conversation. And also,
but isn't it about her fundamental policy?
While I fully respect that Margaret Thatcher did do a lot of quite good things, some quite bad stuff happened afterwards. Like, if you have a big boom, you tend to have a big bust. And the question here is, do you want a sort of slightly rubbish situation for about 10 years or a really good situation for 5 followed by a really bad situation for 5? That's basically the choice you've got.
Dawn, I think what's really interesting when it comes to Truss is that we've been burned by the experience of Theresa May. We really believed that Theresa May, when she said Brexit means Brexit, we put our faith into her and we thought maybe, just maybe. I remember in the early days of Theresa May, I mean, it seems ridiculous to say this now, but I was genuinely excited. I thought, my goodness, Thatcher Mark II, she's arrived and then May let us down. And I think as a result, people are a little bit nervous with Truss for that reason. But she could emerge. Remember, Thatcher wasn't a huge force when she first became Prime Minister.
No,
she emerged, she blossomed in the role.
She wasn't. I just thought the whole Thatcher comparison makes me slightly nervous, especially seeing as Liz Truss does seem to be, like, literally mimicking
She's cosplaying.
She's dressing the same. And I just think, be your own woman, OK? This is a new start. You need to be strong. You need to stand up as you. not like, you know, the ghost of Margaret
But
Thatcher.
she's trying to appeal to Tory
members. But is she going to appeal to the Red Wall? And I just think now, if you put Boris Johnson into this mix, and I'm no fan, as you know, but if you put Boris Johnson into this mix, and not the Tory members, but the general voting public, and said, OK, out of these people, including Boris, which one would you have as the next Prime Minister? And I think a lot of people say
of course.
Boris.
Yeah. Well, look, we're actually doing that. We are doing that. Stand by. You can actually head to my Twitter page now, at Dan Wootton on Twitter. This was actually an idea from a viewer of the show. Thank you so much. We're going to give you a shout-out when we launch The Clash. But essentially, as the final three candidates are revealed, we're going to actually see, are any of the candidates an improvement on the man already in number 10? So that's right. In The Clash tonight, we're asking, who do you want to be Prime Minister? And you will have the opportunity to vote for Boris. So do stand by. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson and Dawn Neeson, my superstar panel, are here all night. And coming up, joining me in that Clash debate at 9:35, I've assembled a team of political masterminds ready to do battle. I want to know what you think too. Of course, email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet us using the handle @GBNews. And find that poll. Honestly, we've had something like 35,000 votes so far. So lots of you are weighing in on this. The results are fascinating. There's still time for you to make your voice heard at Dan Wootton on Twitter. But next, Nigel Farage is here to give his take on Badenoch being booted out of the leadership race and who he thinks will be Britain's next PM.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
My exclusive interview with Attorney General Suella Braverman on the Tory leadership race still to come. But first, let's cross live to Westminster and get the view of our main man, Nigel, in What the Farage. So, Nigel, look, do you think this decision by Tory MPs to knock out Kemi Badenoch today could maybe prove a fatal decision for the party at the next election?
I do. She was the only one of those candidates with any fresh, radical, reforming ideas. And boy, this country needs reform. A completely different energy policy, a different attitude towards small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs, genuine deregulation, cutting of bureaucracy, electoral reform, sweeping away a House of Lords that is completely out of date. So much needs to be done. And actually, Kemi Badenoch was prepared to say, let's take on the educational establishment that is poisoning our kids at school and in university and many other areas. She was the insurgent. She's out. We're left with 3 establishment candidates. Yes, Liz Truss wants to reduce taxes, but frankly, I don't see any other reforming zeal in her or any of the others. It's more of the same. It's taking the Tory party back to its pre-Brexit self. It's making it a party predominantly, I think, of social democracy, not very different to Labour. And I think it's clear now that Truss is going to make the last 2, that Truss will win this contest. She's incapable of communicating a message. It's difficult to believe, at least for me, in her real sincerity on this political journey she claims to have been on. I think the Tory party are on for a catastrophic loss at the next election. And I will take issue with Calvin Robinson. He said she's the best of the 3. No, she's not. She might just be the least worst. But I don't think any of it... I don't think any of it is very good.
Look, what do you think of my theory, though, Nigel, that Truss may well blossom in the role of Prime Minister in a way that Theresa May never had it in her to do? Because, of course, Thatcher, when she first became Prime Minister, wasn't the Thatcher we came to know. And it was actually the role that enhanced her, because from everything I know about Truss's views, and I speak to people who are very close to her, she is sound on the things that you and I care a lot about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard it all before, Dan. I heard it with Theresa May. Don't worry, she voted Remain. It's all going to be fine. Can I remind you, not only did Liz Truss, on the biggest single constitutional question we faced since the war, that's how big Brexit was, not only did she get that wrong, but she voted 3 times for Theresa May's abysmal sellout. If you think that in the space of 18 months, suddenly she's somebody that understands Brexit, gets its passions, gets its emotions, will bring back proper border controls, will stand up to Brussels on the things like Northern Ireland and all the rest of it, I'm sorry, she's an out-and-out careerist. I don't see an ounce of sincerity. And it's very touching, Dan, that you believe in Liz Truss as you believed in Theresa May.
Liz we trust.
I think maybe when you get older, you get a bit more cynical about politics.
Well, no, I fell out of love with Theresa May pretty damn quickly. But I want to keep the faith, Nigel. I mean, look, we're at too important a time in our history, aren't we, to have another lame duck Prime Minister. This is so important. It's so important for the country that Liz Truss succeeds. And I understand your scepticism, of course I do. But I want her to succeed if she wins. And for me, again, the idea of Sunak being Prime Minister, it is more of the same. There is no change to economic policy. The tax burden remains astronomical. And I think he's essentially a bit of a secret wokester as well.
Look, she may bring down taxes a bit, fine. And, you know, Rishi's put them up to the biggest burden for 70 years. Is she going to leave ECHR and get back control of our borders? I don't think so. Is she going to make us self-sufficient in energy? No, she'll stick to this crackpot net zero agenda. Is she going to reform anything in our broken system? Will she be on the side of the 5.5 million small businesses, small men and women out there, genuine entrepreneurs? She doesn't even understand who they are. No. Yes, a few pence off tax. Basically, you're getting a Social Democrat leader of the Conservative Party in a David Cameron mould. It will be a disaster.
I asked Braverman, by the way, about the ECHR, and she seems pretty assured by Truss that if necessary, she will leave. Obviously, Truss also believes in fracking too. But you obviously, you don't think she will actually pull the pin.
Look, it's just like the EU debate was years ago. If necessary, we'll consider what options we have to take to deal with the EU. The Tory party only went for Brexit because they were forced into it, frankly, by an insurgent revolution that took place in this country. No, I don't believe she will do any of those things. Dan, if I'm proved wrong, I'll eat my hat, but I just don't believe it.
Mordaunt, Nigel, her campaign has just crashed, hasn't it? Have you been surprised to see that happen? And did you get to know her at all? Because she was obviously pro-Brexit during the referendum.
Yes, she was pro-Brexit during the referendum, and she cuts an attractive figure in some ways until you examine the fact that she wasn't telling the truth about trans issues. We've just lost a big personality Prime Minister because of his inability to tell the truth. That's why we're in the mess we're in. And when it was exposed that Mordaunt wasn't telling the truth about what she'd said and done over trans issues, that was the end of it. And she's gone from being odds-on favourite this time last week to looking like a rank outsider in the selection tomorrow for the final two. You just have to tell the truth if you want to lead this country, even if some of the things you say are unpalatable. And that's the real lesson from 2022. It's happened to a Prime Minister, but we should tell our kids and our grandkids, if you get caught doing something wrong, don't lie, hold your hands up, ask for forgiveness, and generally you'll get it. There is a big, long, historical, moral story that comes out of the fall of Johnson. I think there are many in the Conservative Party today regretting that Boris is gone, but he did it to himself.
Possibly, but I think you look at these contenders and you look at where the country's at, and all of a sudden Johnson, who's on a bit of a grand farewell tour and clearly has his spark and his energy back, I think he looks much more attractive in terms of an election winner anyway. Nigel, the other big issue for the Tory party as a result of this leadership race is just how out of touch MPs are with the membership. And of course, you saw that over the Brexit race. But we see it again now with Rishi Sunak, because can you see any circumstance where Sunak wins? Because, you know, I know they're polls and I know they're volatile, but if you look at all of the polls of Tory members, he's been thrashed by Badenoch, thrashed by Truss, solidly beaten by Mordaunt. I mean, what could Sunak do to win the faith of the members? Because I think for good reason he's lost it.
If Truss, and I'm assuming Truss makes the last two, if Truss's campaign team have got half a brain, they will expose Rishi's attitude towards the Chinese Communist Party. That, in terms of geopolitics, is Rishi's biggest single weakness. He is a pro-China, uber-globalist, big state, high tax, big government. He's barely even a conservative in any way at all. And I just don't see, given that ball and chain of China he's got to drag around with him towards the membership, barring Liz Truss turning out to be a fraudster or a serial killer, I just don't see how she doesn't win a head-to-head against Sunak. So it isn't going to be PM Sunak, it's going to be PM Truss, someone, frankly, that we barely know, someone that tells us she's been on this extraordinary political journey, someone that tells us she's been through this Damascene conversion. I don't look into her eyes when she's speaking. I don't see that conviction.
OK. Well, time is going to tell us, isn't it, Nigel? But I do agree with you on one thing. I think it is looking pretty inevitable. We're going to be introducing Prime Minister Truss on the 5th of September. Nigel, brilliant show tonight. Thank you so much for sticking around at Westminster. And Nigel is, of course, back 7 p.m. tomorrow when we will know the final two. But coming up, was Boris right to warn that Brexit is under threat from Labour and an insidious deep state? Darren Grimes won't hold back in The Outsider at 9:50. And then there were 3, or should it be 4? Next in The Clash, I let you vote on who you want to be the next PM and give you the option of sticking with Boris. Plus, I'm joined by a team of political masterminds who will stump for their preferred candidate. Back soon.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Attorney General and recent contender to become Prime Minister Suella Braverman is coming up shortly and an exclusive interview. It's time now for The Clash. Now, Boris might have been mercilessly outed by his disloyal MPs, but he's been seeing out his final weeks at number 10 with grace and dignity. After his Top Gun effort, flying in a Typhoon jet with the RAF at the weekend, the PM was back suited and booted today for a school leavers style photo with his trusted cabinet members, minus the snakes. Here's looking at you, Fishy Rishi. Bojo also held his last cabinet meeting where he thumped his chest about the triumphs of his premiership.
It's 1 year today since Freedom Day last year, when we were able fully to reopen our economy and our society. That on another scorching, sweltering day. I think it's very, very important that we think back to that moment when we opened up and try and balance risk with the need to keep our country, our society and our economy moving. And I hope, Cabinet, that you are all agreed that as far as possible, we should keep schools open.
Yes. Yes.
And we should keep our transport system going as far as we possibly can. So thank you all very much, and let's bash on with our agenda. Thank you.
But while Boris packs his bags, it seems a loyal contingent of Tory members are determined not to see him go just yet. Daily Telegraph political chief Christopher Hope, he's here tomorrow night actually, earlier today revealed a bombshell plot to get Boris on the final ballot in the Tory leadership race. He said more than 1,800 Conservative Party members have written to the Tory Party chairman in less than 12 hours to demand that a vote on whether Boris Johnson should carry on as leader. The members, all of whom have to give their membership numbers when they sign up, are backing a petition organised by Tory donor Lord Cruddas and former Conservative MEP David Campbell Bannerman. So there's certainly an appetite for Boris to stick around, and that's why I've been keen to take up the suggestion from our loyal viewer Vicky Jackson, who made it on our Dan Wootton Tonight Club on Twitter, to do a major poll of Boris Johnson versus the final leadership candidates. So here we are tonight in this huge new poll for the show that has so far received 40,000 votes. We'll reveal who you want to be the next Prime Minister of this country out of Johnson, Sunak, Truss and Mordaunt. The poll has been running all afternoon on my Twitter page at Dan Wootton, and it closes tomorrow. I'll bring you the results as they stand shortly. Don't forget to email me your thoughts too, dan@gbnews.uk. But before we imminently reveal how you've been voting, I'm bringing in a team of political masterminds to clash on this leadership conundrum. They are the former aide to Margaret Thatcher and Liz Truss backer Niall Gardner, Penny Mordaunt backer and former MEP Baroness Jacqueline Foster, former Conservative MEP and current Rishi Sunak backer Jerry Hayes, Conservative commentator and Boris Johnson supporter Alex Dean. He was also stumping for Kemi Badenoch. And Bojo's.
Kemi Badenoch.
Yes, you're Kemi Badenoch too. Yes, I know that. And Bojo's former advisor, Colville Ranger, who was in support and is still in support of Boris Johnson. So, Colville, look, I'm not going to reveal the poll results yet, but there is still, it feels like, a sweeping buyer's remorse throughout the membership of the Conservative Party who are looking at all of the leadership contenders and, yes, seeing that some of them have lots of strong points, but thinking, why have we got rid of Boris? How was this going to be any better?
Well, it's that phrase of shopping at Harrods and then you're in the bargain basement, aren't you, Dan? You know, I think what people are looking at is candidates and seeing what they had, an electoral winning machine, someone who connected, someone who did.
It's giving the big sell to Boris Johnson, but we will try and get him back. So let me cross now to Baroness Foster. Baroness, you are backing Penny Mordaunt. Obviously, she has lost some momentum in recent days. Do you think she can still do this?
Yes, I do. I'm absolutely convinced she can. She's the only candidate that can actually win a general election for us. I think she resonates well in both the blue wall and the red wall seats. I think a lot of that comes from how she started, really, in the party and becoming an MP. She spent 7 years trying to win that seat. She is the only MP in the race that did that and has built on the majority. And that shows real resilience and it shows a toughness, because this is a very difficult business, politics. I know myself, because I fought 6 national elections over about 25 years, won 3, lost 3. So it isn't easy. I also think she has a really good manner. I think when we've seen these debates so far on TV, and I'm not going to speak badly about other candidates particularly, because I don't think it benefits anybody, but I think at times she's been the only grown-up in the room. She's taken a lot of criticism. It's been virtual character assassination at times on Twitter and coming from others as well. And then accusations where she's not even really been in a position to respond fully. But she's done it with a great resonance. She's done it with a great, I would say, maturity. And she hasn't reacted. She's just focused on the job ahead. And I think that she will be the ideal person to win a general election for us and to represent this great party of ours.
Impressive sell there for Penny Mordaunt. Jerry Hayes, you're backing Rishi Sunak. Have you looked at these runoff polls?
I'm not backing Rishi Sunak.
Oh, sorry, who are you backing?
This, Dan?
That's what I've been told.
All the way through. And this is the point. This is the point, because Kemi is different to me. She's a right-winger. I'm a Remainer. Yeah, I was banging the drum for her because she could unite the party. What has actually happened is that backbenchers have, almost the whole of the parliamentary party, have delivered to themselves a colossal kick in the ballots. They had a great opportunity to have someone who unite the party, someone who's a woman of colour, someone who is feisty, someone that has genuine beliefs and came into this election not to be somebody, but to actually say something. Now they've thrown it away. None of these jokers are going to win. And we've just thrown away the election to Labour. And that is a disgrace.
Yeah. OK, so now that, I mean, look, I agree with a lot of you say about Kemi. I think she would have been an absolutely outstanding candidate.
Fantastic.
Now that she is gone, though, is it correct that you think Rishi Sunak is the only one that is competent? Because you've actually described Liz and Penny, I believe, as absolute frauds. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm absolutely right. I mean, the thing is, dear, I can't understand why the right wing are coalescing behind Liz Truss. I mean, she was a Lib Dem, not just voter, but a passionate supporter against the monarchy. At the actual referendum vote, she was not just voting for Remain, she was a passionate
Reagan
Remainer.
used to be a Democrat, Jerry Hayes. Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. I mean, come on. Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. Yeah. People do crazy things in their youth. I mean, she had two hard-left parents. Do you not believe that folk can go on a political journey?
Yeah, but can I come in here?
Yes, come in, Penny.
Penny Mordaunt. Penny Mordaunt.
Come in, Jacqueline.
Is the only candidate that actively campaigned for Brexit.
Yeah.
So she is solid. So to sort of say, well, OK, Liz was a Lib Dem. She that's fine. There's not an issue with
well,
that.
look, let me bring Niall Gardner in because...
let's just get the record straight of exactly where Penny Mordaunt is politically.
Yes, no, fair point. Let's bring Niall Gardner in now because Niall believes that Liz Truss is the best person to place Boris Johnson. You've got a lot to respond to there, Niall. Go ahead.
Well, Dan, thanks very much for having me on the show today. And I have to say, I think we will miss Boris Johnson. I think Boris Johnson was a man who delivered Brexit. And so, I think we do owe him a debt of gratitude for what he achieved there on behalf of the British people. I think with regard to who would be, the best next Prime Minister for Great Britain, I do think that Liz Truss, out of all of the candidates, would be by far the best figure. I think she does have very sound political instincts. She is now a very committed Brexiteer. Certainly, she started off as a Liberal Democrat and as a Remainer, but she has become, I think, a very dedicated, a very devout Brexiteer. Liz Truss, I think, is someone with tremendous political experience. She's done very, very well as Foreign Secretary. She stood up to the likes of Vladimir Putin on the international stage, and she has demonstrated real strength and resolve. And she's also somebody who I think is without a doubt a very strong admirer of my former boss, Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
And I think Liz Truss shares a lot of the same, Thatcherite instincts, low taxes, limited government, reigning in the role of the state. She's also somebody who's going to stand up for Britain on the world stage against an array of dictators from Moscow to Beijing. And I think that's a very good thing. So I do think that Liz Truss actually is by far the strongest contender. And looking at the latest polling as well, I mean, she looks like the clear front runner. And if she does get to the second round, the final round, which I think she will do, the last two candidates, every poll indicates that she would blow Rishi Sunak out of the water, actually.
Absolutely.
Party members. So,
good defence of Truss there. I want to bring Alex Dean in because, Alex, I've been fascinated to speak to you today. I know you were pro-Boris. Then, of course, you were very much on the Kemi Badenoch train. So where do you stand tonight now that she's out the race?
Well, look, you've got to be realistic in politics. I don't think the Prime Minister should have been defenestrated, but he has been, and we are where we are. I don't think that trying to put him back on the ballot or something like that is going to work, given what so many of his MPs have said about him. Yes, I then backed Kemi Badenoch. I thought she was an incredible, not just breath of fresh air, is an amazing understatement of the dynamism and fresh thinking that she brought to the campaign, and what a vivid statement it would make of the change in the Conservative Party, changing and being reborn in government had she become our leader, but that's not to be either. So we are where we are, and I find Niall's position compelling. I think that Liz Truss is likely to be our leader after this contest is concluded. And furthermore, on the position that people have been criticising her about on Brexit, I'm pragmatic on that too. Brexit is done in the same way that Boris Johnson was defenestrated, in the same way that Kemi Badenoch's out of the contest. Whether or not people like Brexit, we have left the EU. It would be total electoral suicide of any Prime Minister to try to take us out, try to take us back in again. So my point is that Liz Truss does have all of those instincts that Niall was rightly outlining, and they're important to me. She's a free marketeer. She wants a small state. She wants to lower taxes and get the government off our backs. And for that reason, I find her message compelling. And I think that, of those that are left, I find myself supporting Liz Truss.
OK, she's got your vote. We've got Colville Ranger back. Oh, sorry, Jerry, just hang on, because I'm going to bring Colville in, because Colville, you're obviously banging the drum for Boris, because there's this big push now to get him back on the ballot somehow. And this is coming from the members, Colville. Don't the MPs feel very out of touch with where Conservative Party members are at?
Hasn't it ever been thus, Dan? But look, let's be honest. What we're talking about is personality and campaigning. Because at the end of the day, we're going to have to win elections. We're going to have to win a general election. And what all these candidates should be looked at is through the prism of who really is a great campaigner, who understands the grassroots, who reaches further. Because actually, we also know that we can't stagnate with 35% of the population. We need to go further. And that's what Boris Johnson achieved in London and across the country. Now, who will that be? When I look at who's left, and obviously we know Rishi will probably be in the final two. but I don't think the membership will go for Rishi. I think he has some challenges there. And then we have an option between Liz and Penny.
Come in, Baroness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with... I mean, I wouldn't have put a resignation letter in if it was me personally, I have to tell you. But we are where we are, and we've got to take this forward.
And Penny didn't resign, obviously.
I think, no, Penny did not. She said, she carried on with her job. And I just wanted to pick up on her behalf because, as we know, the primary purpose of any government is the security and safety of the people of any state. That's their primary purpose. And I think in terms of what we were talking about on the world stage, or where you're looking at the defence of the realm, what we're looking at now with Russia and China and Ukraine, and I think Penny Mordaunt would be very sound on those issues. Her father was a paratrooper. She's been brought up basically in a naval city. She has a very
good on the foreign stage. Jerry Hayes, you wanted to come in?
The armed forces. So I would be very, very confident that she would represent us very well on the world stage.
Look, this is all wonderful stuff. But the fact of the matter is we're navel-gazing, aren't we? We're saying this is what the membership want. What we should be looking at is what do the electorate want? Now, Ranveer said something very interesting.
They want the same as the membership on this.
Hang on, just a moment, Jacqueline. Let me just finish. Ranveer was saying quite properly that Boris Johnson was a great campaigner. So we need someone who comes out front who's a great campaigner. Is Liz Truss a great campaigner? She's so wooden. You need to weatherproof her.
I mean, Alex Dean, do you think Truss can develop in the same way that Thatcher did?
Candidates that we don't support or aren't our preference, because I've got to tell you, I feel very lucky as a member of the Conservative Party. I think any of these candidates, indeed any of those that were on the long list, could beat Keir Starmer in a general election. I feel very confident in the ability of the leadership crop currently in the Tory Party to beat Keir Starmer.
I'll give the final word to Niall Gardner. Do you agree, Niall?
Yes, I mean, I would say, in addition to Alex's excellent comments, that, Liz Truss has stood up to the likes of Vladimir Putin. She can stand up to Keir Starmer. She can stand up to the Euro federalists. She can stand up to the European Union. We need that kind of leadership right now.
Okay.
She is somebody who believes in Brexit. She believes in Britain. I think she'll be a very successful Prime Minister.
As will Penny Mordaunt.
Okay, great arguments. I loved that. You're very passionate for your candidates, as you should be. Former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner there, the former MEP, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, former Conservative MEP and barrister Jerry Hayes, Conservative MP, that is, Conservative commentator Alex Dean, and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Colvare Rangers. So, who did you vote for in my major poll? Who do you want to be Prime Minister? Kevin on Twitter says it will probably be Liz, and that's not what people want. What a farce. Big mistake. From Carol, if they don't put Boris on the ballot paper, they can kiss power goodbye. I won't be voting for any of the contenders when it comes to the next election. And from Maggie on email, I would prefer Boris, but as that is not possible, I have voted for Liz Truss. And your verdict is now in. Well, we have now had over 41,000 votes already cast, and the results are fascinating. 50% of you want Boris Johnson for Prime Minister, 16% want Liz Truss, 21% want Penny Mordaunt, and just 13% backing Rishi Sunak. Coming up, after defying expectations to finish a very respectable fourth place in the leadership contest, could Kemi Badenoch be a future Prime Minister? We'll debate that in the Media Buzz with my superstar panel after 10. Also, as Boris Johnson warns Brexit is under threat from Labour and the deep state, should we be worried about them reversing Britain's independence? Darren Grimes here after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
My exclusive interview with the Attorney General, Suella Braverman, coming up. But first, Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. Now, during yesterday's debate on a confidence motion in Boris Johnson's government, the Prime Minister gave one of the landmark, grandiose and passionate speeches that we've come to expect from him over the years. But together with affirming some of his biggest achievements, Boris also delivered a very serious warning about the future of Brexit once he leaves number 10.
And some people will say, as I leave office, that this is the end of... They will say this is the end of Brexit. They will... Oh, yes. Listen to deathly hush. Deathly hush. And the leader of the opposition and the deep state will prevail in its plot to haul us back into alignment with the EU as a prelude to our eventual return. And we on this side of the House will prove them wrong, won't we?
Like the PM, I've been very clear about the insidious forces at play trying to overturn the biggest democratic mandate in British history. Labour, the Blob and even Tory rebels have never accepted this country's decision to leave the EU. And I like the fact he's now branded them the deep state because they are. But Darren Grimes, that term has caused controversy. What did you make of the Prime Minister unleashing the phrase the deep state to talk about these rejoiners, as he also branded them?
You know what, Dan? I was just looking on the Guido Fawkes newsletter earlier today, and it says in it that it was 3 years since I won my court case against the electorate.
I saw that, yeah.
Now, that was a sign of the deep state that was against Brexit. That was a David and Goliath situation in which a part of the state had become a Crango out of control. It had become a partisan, anti-Brexit outfit. And we saw so many organisations with an acronym starting to take that view. The Prime Minister had one of the hardest, difficult wickets to actually smash out of the park, and he did it. He was the man who managed to do it, to get through that deep state, to actually get through opposition politicians, let's not forget, like Sir Keir Starmer, the architect of Labour's second referendum campaign.
Yes.
And all of these other things. So I think the Prime Minister is absolutely right, and no one would know better than Boris Johnson, a man who, let's not forget, had to actually sack parliamentary colleagues of his that stood opposed to actually leaving the EU without a deal. They wanted to chain us to the worst possible deal that we could achieve from Brussels. And I actually think Boris is bang on here. That Sir Keir Starmer, again, a pretty staunch ally of the European Union. He was closer to Michel Barnier than I think he has been to any part of this country. So I think he's bang on to actually say, Sir Keir, he'd have us in there quicker than goodness only knows what, right? He's taken more positions on Brexit than there have been iterations of the Sugar Babe stand. That's how serious it is.
And I love the Sugar Babe. Back to the original lineup now, by the way. But Darren, so actually, there's nothing wrong with him using this term. In fact, maybe it would have been better for him to try and explain this narrative to the British public earlier in his term.
Absolutely, because if you think about the way in which Boris is on Wednesday, so tomorrow, the House of Commons will actually, well, presumably, push through the Northern Ireland Bill, which actually seeks to sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol. We haven't left the EU, right? We haven't actually left as a full country. Northern Ireland is still very much in the EU single market and under the auspices of the European Court. There are so many things to still sort out with Brexit. And why do you think that is, Dan? It's because people have stood in the way since 2016 to ensure that that vote was reduced to nothing. And actually, Boris Johnson has been one of the staunchest defenders of not just the people of this country, but actually for something as precious as democracy here in Britain. And I actually think, Dan, I'm starting to come to the conclusion that we have made one hell of a mistake.
Yeah, well, I wanted to know, Darren, very quickly, before we get to the news, who are you backing? And did you see the results of my poll? Over 40,000 people, 50% saying, actually, if Boris Johnson was on the ballot, they would be voting for him.
And I get that. I mean, I think we should turn around as a nation and say, look, Boris, you've learnt your lesson.
Yeah.
We've given you...
We made a big mistake.
Yeah. We're coming back in. Yeah. Don't leave number 10. Don't leave
OK, but out of the 4, I know you love Badenoch, and I completely understand why. But she's not on the ballot now, Darren. So we've got 3 left. So who is it for you?
So
Sunak,
I've just
Truss,
mentioned there the really
Morden?
important fundamental part of Brexit being we need to get Northern Ireland out of the EU single market. And I think the only candidate that's got the balls, frankly, Dan, if I can use that on your show, to do it is Liz Truss.
So Darren Grimes has said, and Liz, we trust as well. Darren Grimes, thank you so much. We'll speak next week. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the race to number 10 is close to being handed over to Conservative Party members, with Tory MPs today eliminating the anti-woke champion Kemi Badenoch, to the outrage of many Conservative loyalists. But after Kemi's meteoric rise to finish 4th in the leadership contest, is she now marked with destiny to become a future Prime Minister? And is she really Labour's worst nightmare? Plus, look who else is having a nightmare.
Totally useless as a health secretary.
John, excuse me.
It's not the fact that you know.
Oh, God bless him. Tonight's Superstar panel are riled and ready to debate all of that next. Former editor and current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator the Reverend Calvin Robertson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Another rising star nailed on for Conservative glory is Suella Braverman. The Brexit loyalist and no-nonsense Attorney General finished 6th in the Tory leadership race, and shortly before coming on air, I sat down with her for an exclusive interview on the battle for number 10. Your experience is that Penny Mordaunt didn't want to protect the rights of the women of women in legislation. Is that correct?
Penny Mordaunt was the Bill Minister taking the bill through Parliament. It referred to me as a pregnant person. I actually was personally quite offended by it.
Oh, it is juicy stuff. Suella tells all on Truss, Mordaunt and Sunak at 10:15. And as Britain swelters in its highest temperatures ever...
And as I've tried to indicate for quite some time, the climate crisis really is a genuine emergency, and tackling it is utterly essential.
Was eco-crusader Prince Charles wrong to use the heatwave to wade into politics yet again and push his net zero agenda? And just why is a fish finger firm now pushing its own creepy eco-extremist view of the world?
Don't we have them sometimes?
I'm not sure.
Is it because you fear change and you're scared to try something new? Because if no one likes it, it will be remembered as the night Mum made that thing.
Rage. Don't miss those stories now. Media Buzz at 10:30. Plus, what do the Americans think of their refugee Duke of Woke? Well, US political firebrand Meghan McCain gives her unfiltered analysis of a miserable Prince Harry who not only slammed his own country but has now attacked the nation he calls home in a depressing and quite frankly telling speech to the UN. She's uncancelled at 10:40 on that. Plus, we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and a brand new Greatest Britain New Jackass too. But first, news at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. The top story tonight. Large fires have ravaged parts of England after today's record-breaking temperatures. Major incidents have been declared by fire brigades in London, Leicestershire, South Yorkshire and now Buckinghamshire. Residents of Wennington near Dagenham in East London had to be evacuated from their homes as around 100 firefighters tackled a blaze that had spread to residential areas. At least 2 people were taken to hospital suffering from smoke inhalation. Dave Biles was one of those forced to evacuate. He spoke to GB News earlier.
Such a shock. All of a sudden the police were knocking at doors, evacuate, evacuate. I was one of the last out of our group to evacuate because I had to shut everything down. Took smoke in. I want to see the ambulance in a minute, get myself checked, you know, but the whole thing is just it's just something you don't think will ever happen. It's just something you see on TV. This is devastating, devastating. We've been here 27 years. Most of the people along there, you know, you make your home what it is, you know, and that's where you think you're going to be the rest of your life. And for something like this, devastating.
Well, temperatures in the UK reached over 40 degrees Celsius for the first time. The Met Office saying a provisional reading of 40.3 degrees was measured at Coningsby in Lincolnshire. Red extreme heat warnings continue for millions of people in England, with amber warnings for most of Britain. And the heat has caused major disruption to transport networks as well, with no trains running out of London King's Cross, London St Pancras or London Euston, and there's a limited service out of London Marylebone. Hospitals have also been affected and forced to scale back the number of planned surgeries. And the London Ambulance Service says it's answering around 400 calls an hour from patients experiencing heat exposure. As you've been hearing, Kemi Badenoch is out of the Conservative leadership race after a ballot by the 1922 committee today. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak secured the most votes in that ballot with support from 118 MPs. Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt came in second with 92 votes. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss secured 86. The next and final ballot among MPs takes place tomorrow, and the candidates will be whittled down to the final 2. Full coverage right here at GB News. Some public sector workers are to receive their highest pay rise for more than 2 decades. Over 1 million NHS staff, including nurses, paramedics and midwives, will receive a £1,400 annual pay rise, with even the lowest earners to receive as much as 9.3%. Eligible dentists and doctors will receive 4.5% and police 5%. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Now it's time for Dan Wootton Tonight, Part 2.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now on Our Media Buzz. Just one front page in so far. It is the Metro. Burning hot Britain is how they describe today's 40.3 degree heat. The paper reporting on, quote, inferno mayhem with homes torched as the UK records its hottest ever day. My hottest ever superstar panel back with me, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, while she may have just become the latest casualty in the tightly fought Tory leadership race, brave culture warrior Kemi Badenoch has made a lasting impression. Before standing in the contest, the Essex-born former Equalities Minister was rarely heard outside her constituency, really, despite making waves in Westminster in the bubble, really, with her tub-thumping maiden Parliament speech in 2017.
There's more to conservatism than economic liberalism. Respect for the rule of law, personal responsibility, freedom of speech, of association and opportunity through meritocracy. These freedoms are being subtly eroded in an era where emotion and feeling is prized above reason and logic. It is these freedoms that I will seek to defend during my time in this House.
So even back then, the fierce newcomer from humble beginnings was lauded as a future PM, and as the Daily Mail's editor-at-large Richard Kay wrote today, she has done precious little wrong to disabuse supporters of that since. what they recognised then and do now even more as the curtain comes down on the Boris years is that she would be immune to Labour's class-based insults. Indeed, she has been described as Labour's worst nightmare. Rattling the opposition from the offset, straight-talking Kemi has never shied away from confrontation on hot-button issues like trans activism and critical race theory and net zero, with her anti-woke platform winning her scores of new admirers. And while she's out of the leadership race, the Tory firecracker is now a shoo-in for a significant cabinet post under the new PM, with some speculation she could be made Deputy Prime Minister if she does a deal with fishy Rishi Sunak, or maybe even Home Secretary. So after a meteoric rise, could Kemi Badenoch be a future Prime Minister? Is she really Labour's worst nightmare? Calvin Robinson, I'm going to come first to you because you have been a supporter of Kemi Badenoch, like me, for many years, because I agree she wasn't massively known outside the Westminster bubble, but in our world, she's a superstar, right?
That's the thing. We've been keeping an eye on her for a while. I said to her a couple of weeks ago, you have to run. And I'm not taking credit for this, but what I'm saying is that a lot of the membership saw what we saw.
It's down to you, Reverend. It was down to you.
But I was validated because the membership saw the same things that we saw, that she has what it takes. She speaks the truth. She is a person who would change from the establishment that we're used to. And she's not afraid of difficult topics like net zero and like free speech, all of these issues that won't get addressed now that she's out of the leadership.
So how disillusioned are you now that she's out? And is there another candidate that you can throw your support behind?
No, because just as we were aware of her, many people weren't. And now her profile has been raised. I'm convinced she'll get a good cabinet position. So it's important.
Do you agree with me,
to have
potential
someone
future
like
Prime Minister?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's important that she's in the inner circle now. So I'm pleased with that. I'm not disillusioned. As for who takes the leadership position, I'm hoping Liz Truss.
Rebecca Reid, you're in more of the woke world, the left-wing world. So surely Kemi Badenoch is your worst nightmare.
On behalf of my people.
Yeah.
No, an intelligent woman doing incredibly well in her career is not my worst nightmare. I don't necessarily agree with her.
You disagree with virtually everything she thinks, right?
The free speech stuff, I'm here, aren't I? I fully agree on that front.
That's true.
And what I like about her is that while I don't agree with her, I know what she thinks. Whereas Penny Mordaunt, I don't know. In fact, most of them, I'm not sure what they think. And I like the fact that I'd rather have somebody who says things that I find offensive, but I know what their actual personal thoughts are, than somebody who says what they think is going to make people a slogan that they don't like them.
That's a good point, isn't it? You know, she was the most honest in terms of this campaign. I mean, Mordaunt, as Rebecca points out, is literally saying, oh, no, silly little people, I'm not going to tell you until I'm Prime Minister what my policies on tax are. I mean, what?
Penny has already gone back on everything she's already said, and what we want now is a Prime Minister that is honest, that we can trust. And I don't think in Penny that we would have that, because she's already gone back on the trans issue. When I said that, you know, trans women were women, didn't actually mean it. Well, what did you mean?
Well, it's fascinating what Suella Braverman says about that, and we're going to play you that very shortly.
The question you're asking, Dan, is Kemi Labour's worst nightmare? No, I think Keir Starmer is Labour's worst nightmare.
Very good.
And the one person that's going to win the Conservatives election is Keir Starmer.
I
think you're so right there.
I think Kemi is an example. David Cameron said over the weekend, when I was in charge, I felt like this party did not have enough diversity, and I did work to try and combat it. And I think if you look at the spread of the party, it is really genuinely not bringing in women and then letting them do nothing because they can just be in the front of the photos, actually genuinely diverse.
Well,
I think Labour could learn from that.
Well, no, completely. And this is the thing. The Tories and the Tory party does genuine diversity. Calvin, I sort of hate the focus on it, though, because to me it's identity politics.
But we don't
Kemi
see that.
Badenoch is not brilliant because of her race or because of her sex. She is brilliant because of what she believes and why she believes it.
Absolutely. Her conviction and her policies are what make her brilliant.
Right.
And that's why the right support her. Her race doesn't come into it whatsoever.
Absolutely.
But the left have been saying, we want a black person, and now they're saying, but not that one.
I know, of course, not Kemi.
I'm not saying I want a black person because it'll make me feel good about the Labour Party. I want a party that brings people from all different backgrounds.
You need to join the Tories, Rebecca. You need to join the Tories.
No.
Now, as Dawn was just referencing, it's been a spectacularly bad week for PM hopeful Penny Mordaunt, but she's not going down without a fight. The former leadership favourite has come under intense scrutiny, of course. And things went bad for worse for her when the Daily Mail claimed she met with a controversial Muslim group when she was a minister. But down, but certainly not out, the PM hopeful has hit back with, I have to say, a really charming video about her backstory. This is the best of the videos that I've seen from any candidate over the course of the campaign. Watch.
I've lived in Portsmouth all my life. It's a military city with a proud history.
It's patriotic, it's passionate about football, it likes a pie and a pint, and quite frankly, so do I. When I was 15, my mother died. From then on, I looked after my family. We relied on the NHS during that time, and I will never forget it. When we were short of money, I worked in factories and pubs. I know about the cost of living and how frightening it can be.
Yeah, very good video, and I think that will impress a lot of people. Yesterday, though, I told you about left-wing darling Angela Rayner's debut taking calls on LBC when every single listener shockingly seemed to agree with her. Well, it wasn't the case for disgraced former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who had to go this morning with far less successful consequences. Watch.
Totally useless as a health secretary. There's 3.5 million people suffering from the effects of rare disease in this country.
Well, hold on, John. Hold on. Just hold on, John. I hope we can negotiate. I hope we can negotiate our way back into that. But actually, John, excuse me.
It's not the fact that you know it.
Excuse me, John.
There's a camera on you, Matt. There's a camera on you. I sort of understand it. He just couldn't engage with that debate any longer. And you know what? For the first time, I think I'll say, I can't believe I'm saying this, I actually felt sorry for Matt Hancock because he was owned. And it's not easy doing that job and to be owned by a caller like that. But then again, it was a lot easier for Angela Rayner when all of the callers were just saying, I think you're brilliant. You'll be an amazing Prime Minister. You're better than Starmer. You're better than Boris. So I think we know where that radio station stands these days. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robertson, Dawn Neeson. Do stand by because coming up, as Britain bakes in record-breaking heat, was eco-crusader Prince Charles wrong to use the heatwave to wade into politics yet again and push his net zero agenda? My superstar panel and I will debate as the media buzz continues. But next, rising star of the Conservative Party, former leadership candidate and current Attorney General Suella Braverman joins me for an exclusive tell-all interview and reveals why she's now backing Liz Truss for Prime Minister.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Time now for my exclusive interview with would-be Prime Minister and serving Attorney General Suella Braverman. She cemented her name as the no-nonsense Brexit loyalist of the Tory right wing and bowed out of the leadership race in 6th place, ahead of, by the way, the likes of Nadeem Zahawi and Sajid Javid. Reflecting on who will now win the keys to number 10, Suella sat down with me for a tell-all interview earlier this evening on the high-octane race to BPM, and she reveals who she is backing to take the top job. General, great to have you here tonight. What a seismic 2 weeks this has been in British politics. I have to say, first off, congratulations on your campaign. I think you would have been a great Prime Minister, but given the process has been so truncated, you didn't really get a chance, did you, to show what you were offering the country?
Well, thank you for your kind words. I very much enjoyed putting my name forward, arguing my case to colleagues and the country. And whilst, of course, I'm disappointed with the results, I have no regrets whatsoever about standing on a very clearly defined policy platform that was presented to members in a professional way. And I was really grateful for the support that I got from the team, people who nominated me, the people who campaigned for me, those friendly colleagues who actually voted for me, and actually just blown away by the very high levels of goodwill that I got from my colleagues, even if they didn't vote for me.
Now, you were the Spartan Brexiteer in the process, and almost immediately after being eliminated, you swung your support behind Liz Truss, which was very significant in this process. Of course, Liz has absolutely become a proponent of Brexit, but she didn't vote for Brexit. So that endorsement from you really was a signal to the Brexiteers in your party that we can trust Truss when it comes to Brexit. Why do you have that faith in her, given that she voted Remain?
I've worked closely with Liz during her time as Foreign Secretary principally, but also when she was International Trade Secretary. And I've seen close up that she is very much committed to delivering on the Brexit opportunities. She is wholeheartedly committed and devoted to resolving the issues relating to Northern Ireland. And I've really seen that she's a big champion for Brexit. So for me, her actions and what she's done in government and how she's used her roles in government have persuaded me that she is the strongest advocate for Brexit on offer.
Have you been offered a cabinet post in her administration?
I don't think Liz is offering cabinet posts to people, and that's my understanding. So no such discussions have taken place.
Of course, it's looking increasingly likely that it will be a Truss versus Sunak runoff, but we don't know. So I want to talk about all three candidates, of course, because the MPs still have Penny Mordaunt in the mix as well. Now, Ms Mordaunt was the early favourite amongst the members, but over the past week there's been real scrutiny, especially when it comes to her positioning and her actuality, I guess, when it comes to trans ideology and the rights of women. You, of course, have been a real proponent for that, especially because you've been at the coalface in terms of your maternity leave and needing to protect your job in that position. Your experience is that Penny Mordaunt didn't want to protect the rights of the women of women in legislation. Is that correct?
My experience was relating to Penny's stewardship of the ministerial and other maternity allowances bill, which was introduced by government for my benefit at the time because I had a baby. I was a
and you needed maternity leave as Attorney General, and under the law you couldn't get that at the time.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. It was an anomaly of our system that just by virtue of having a baby I would have had to resign from my job. And I have to say, to his credit, the Prime Minister was absolutely 100% supportive of someone in his top team having a baby, no questions asked, and he was 100% behind me and supporting me to have some time with my newborn and also come back to my job. And I'll always be grateful to him for his support. But it required legislation. Penny Mordaunt was the Bill Minister taking the bill through Parliament. And what happened was, in the bill, it referred to me as a pregnant person. That's gender-neutral language. That's the civil service preferred terminology to use in those circumstances, so they said. And that was quite I took it. I actually was personally quite offended by it. I thought I'm a pregnant woman, and I think that should be honoured in the legislation.
And she was responsible for that?
Well, there was a lot of opposition to that wording by Conservative backbenchers, Lords, cross-party Lords, actually, and the record shows very clearly. I mean, it's indisputable what Penny's position was, and that was that she opposed changing the language for various reasons.
So she wanted pregnant person to remain in the bill.
That is what the record shows, and if you look at the Hansard of late February, early March 2021, you will see very clearly what Penny Mordaunt's position was, and she resisted any changes to the wording.
So she's woke, right?
I have to make clear, you know, I have no gripe with Penny. Penny is my
neighbouring
friend.
MP.
She's my neighbouring MP, and I think she's a formidable lady, a great talent. I did disagree with the position she took on the wording in that legislation. I know many colleagues did in Parliament, but I disagree with her take on
can you understand
gender
why
ideology.
this matters to members? Because given the force of this new cultural wave of wokeism that has taken over so many institutions in our country, it's important that we have a Prime Minister that doesn't sign up to this ideology, isn't it?
In my view, it is. I think I do see Penny as the woke candidate, informed by the position she took last year on that bill. I think it was a no-brainer, actually, to change the wording to woman, and I don't think there was any legal or drafting reason why it couldn't have been done, personally. I do think this is. I don't think it's our number one issue in the country. I don't think it's going to be determinative of this leadership campaign. I think the cost of living challenges facing millions of families around the country, I think, you know, our approach on the economy are much more pressing issues and defining issues, actually, for politics today.
But it's indicative of a way of thinking.
But I do have quite strong feelings on this issue of, you know, the cultural attitudes which are seeping into our public and private institutions. It relates to gender ideology. I'm quite concerned about the spread of a particular politicised ideology in our schools. The approach taken to single-sex spaces, the approach taken to single-sex sports. I'm traditionalist, you could say. I believe
Liz Truss has stood up for the rights of women, hasn't she?
That's my experience of Liz. She gave a speech. It was quite controversial at the time. I think it was end of 2020. She gave a speech setting out her very clear views on gender and race and equalities generally in our country. And I think it was a very common sense approach. It was very much about fairness, meritocracy, equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, much more in favour of the former rather than the latter. And I think looking at people on the content of their character rather than on their personal characteristics, skin colour or gender.
So that's Mordaunt. I want to talk about Rishi Sunak, because at the moment all of the polls of the members shows both Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss thrashing Rishi Sunak in the runoff. A lot of that, Suella, is because of the perceived disloyalty of the former Chancellor towards the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, I spoke to Nadine Dorries on this show last week, and she said that for many months the Chancellor was not committed to his work because he was plotting behind the scenes to depose Boris Johnson. Was that your experience, and can you understand why there is now so much reluctance to back Rishi Sunak, who's viewed as a backstabber?
I've got to say, I don't know about those kind of stories. I personally would not have resigned. Rishi was in a very different position to me. He was, you know, he set it out in his resignation letter. I disagree with his decision to resign, but ultimately it's a personal decision. I don't know how that will be viewed by the members, to be honest. I mean, my personal views, I feel a very great sense of loyalty to Boris Johnson, and I do think it's I have a great sadness that it's come to an end in the way that it has, because I think he achieved huge amounts for our country. He's been an election winner. He's got an unassailable record when it comes to elections, and I think there was a lot more for him to do, not just for our country but for the world. So, and I think there's a lot of that goodwill towards him in the country. I certainly see in my constituency and amongst our membership. So that may well influence the vote, but who knows? I'm never going. It's a very brave person who tries to anticipate the results of an election.
How was his final cabinet meeting today, and what was the mood like?
Well, in characteristic Boris Johnson style, it was upbeat, jovial, focused on the issues that really matter, i.e. the British people and delivery of policy. That's his passion. I won't lie, I shed a tear. You know, it's a gift was presented to the Prime Minister on behalf of the Cabinet. No, he's very pragmatic and you know, magnanimous and reflective on the situation. I think at the end of the day, he is still Prime Minister. There is still a job of governing to do. You know, I've been in several other meetings with him on other subjects. You know, there are big decisions still that require focus and executive application. So he is actually focused on the day job.
Just finally, Suella, you're obviously one of the main surrogates now for Liz Truss. I just want to ask you 3 quick-fire questions about her policy positions, which are very important to our viewers.
Yes.
Is she committed to leave the European Court of Human Rights?
Well, Liz has told me that she will do whatever it takes to solve the small boats problem. And you know, if that requires leaving the European Convention of Human Rights, then so be it, yes.
I've been told that she is opposed to further COVID lockdowns. Is that your understanding?
That's a good question. I mean, that's quite hypothetical, and hopefully we're never presented with such a question again. But from my experience of Liz and her views that she's taken in the past, that does sound very much like the Liz I know.
And what about immigration?
Again, I think she takes a pragmatic approach. I think that generally she would want us to get control over illegal migration. I think she's taking a very robust approach, which is why I feel I can lend her my support in these circumstances. But, you know, I think she also acknowledges that we have labour market shortages and we need to, first of all, try and incentivise the British workforce to fill those gaps. But there may well be an economic need for migration.
Will she sell Channel 4 and abolish the BBC licence fee?
Again, I think Liz is quite clear on that. She wants to deliver our 2019 manifestos. And as that is, if I remember correctly, contained in our manifesto, I think it's definitely going to be delivered under Liz.
Attorney General Suella Braverman, so good to have you tonight.
Likewise, thank you.
Now, coming up in Uncancelled, what do Americans think of the Duke of Woke? US political firebrand Meghan McCain gives her unfiltered analysis of a miserable Prince Harry after his diabolical UN speech. But next, a media buzz as Britain bakes in the record-breaking heat. Was eco-crusader Prince Charles wrong to use the heat wave to suit his political green agenda yet again? My panel debate that straight after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages there in my hot little hands. Let's show you them. The Guardian labels today's temperature a wake-up call after the UK passes 40 degrees Celsius for the first time. The Eye calls the UK a tinderbox as it covers those record temperatures, but it reports the heatwave is to come to a sudden end with cooler days and thunderstorms. So 2 days. 2 days of heat. That's what it is. Britain ignites as temperatures break 40 degrees for the first time. That's what the Daily Telegraph says. Underneath that, though, Truss closing in on Mordaunt to join Sunak in the final head-to-head. The Daily Express leads with the story that Liz Truss has committed to tackling the cost of living crisis by cutting bills, being bold and making the most of the Brexit opportunities. The Daily Star's headline, the very, very slow march of the zombies as many sleep-deprived Brits staggered out of bed after the hottest night ever. The Daily Mirror leads with Britain is burning. And the lead story in the Daily Mail, as Liz Truss becomes the bookies' favourite to become PM, her allies have warned Rishi Sunak's team not to try and fix tomorrow's vote with dirty backroom deals. It's reported the former Chancellor would prefer not to face Truss in the final two. Of course he wouldn't, because he would lose to Truss. He will be thrashed by Truss, I actually believe, in the end. Mordaunt he'd probably lose too, but I think it would be a closer run. More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel, though, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star and a walking zombie herself, Dawn Neeson, the commentator, Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, today was the day Brits suffered through, if you believe the MSM, or, if you enjoyed it. If you're in the real world, record-breaking temperatures. The mercury passed 40 degrees for the first time ever at Heathrow Airport, setting an all-time high. London Fire Brigade declared a state of emergency as the sunshine and heat caused havoc across the capital. And this shocking blaze erupted on the side of the A2 near Dartford.
My dad's gonna get trained.
I salute our brave firefighters for their heroic efforts today and always. Luckily for me, not a big fan of the extreme heat in a suit, I have to admit. The temperatures are set to subside from tomorrow, and we must remember we've only had 2 days of this, so we don't need to go completely bonkers with knee-jerk responses to the sunshine like some mad hat corners of the country, especially the BBC and Sky News have done. But while these record-breaking temperatures might be new, one thing that doesn't change is Prince Charles sticking his nose in where it's not wanted. It was only a few weeks ago that the Prince of Wales thought it was right to break royal protocol and get involved in politics by slamming the government's Rwanda plan as appalling. Now, though, eco-mad Charles has capitalised on our brace of warm-weathered days by using it to push his long-running eco-agenda. Speaking in Cornwall yesterday, Charles said the summer climbs were proof we needed to push forward fast with crippling net zero ambitions. Look.
If I may say so, these commitments around net zero have never been more vitally important as we all swelter under today's alarming record temperatures across Britain and Europe. And as I've tried to indicate for quite some time, the climate crisis really is a genuine emergency, and tackling it is utterly essential for Cornwall, the country, and the rest of the world.
Just remember, one senior cabinet minister said last month, how on earth can Charles continue to behave in such a way when he is imminently going to take the throne as king? And make no mistake, this isn't just a one-off blunder. Charles has a habit of stucking his oar in, and it goes back decades, with former Education Secretary David Blunkett once revealing the Prince tried to get Tony Blair's government to expand grammar schools. One senior government source, speaking off the back of the Rwanda gaffe last month, said he will present serious constitutional issues. His mother, the Queen, has set the gold standard when it comes to keeping the hell out of political matters. We reluctantly tolerate Charles's antics now, but I fear the nation will not be so keen to accept his nonsense once he is king. And Calvin Robinson, look, he might be right. But when is he going to learn? He is not a politician. Leave it to the politicians. We hear enough people. There are enough people terrifying us about climate change, Calvin. It is not Prince Charles's job to do so.
Yes, His Royal Highness started his speech with, if I may say so, and I wish someone would have said, no, you may not. It's not his place to get political. He is going to be the sovereign very, very soon, and he needs to start acting like a king.
Because net zero is a political issue, isn't it?
Of course it is. It's
political
contested. And to suggest that this weather is proof of net zero or climate change or a global crisis is nonsense, because it's proof of summer. It's hot
net zero
weather.
is also it is a political decision, Dawn, and it's a political decision that is actually going to cost a lot of ordinary families who are struggling a lot of money. And that's why, you know, he can talk about climate change as a concept, but when it comes to net zero, that is a political decision. It is highly politicised.
This is the problem. And look, Charles has been banging on about this since he was 21 years old. That's a long time now. I mean, to be fair, it's always been his passion. He's always had, you know, he's always been a bit bee-bothery, hasn't he, talking to plants, etc. So he's always done that. The problem I think most of us have is, why haven't we listened to him over the past 20, you know, God knows how many years? We haven't, because it's the privilege, the hypocrisy from his position. It's like, you know...
When he still jumps in his private jets, jumps in his helicopters.
Well, exactly. And how did he get down to Cornwall, by the way? I was trying to research how he actually travelled down to Cornwall, and I couldn't find out.
To be fair, lots of them do take the train. They do often take the train.
I hope it was.
Well, he doesn't take the train very often, Rebecca. I usually see him jumping into a helicopter, jumping into a private jet. I mean, do you feel this was an appropriate intervention from Prince Charles?
I think he's absolutely right, and I think he absolutely shouldn't have said it. I think he's completely right, but this isn't his place. And I think I actually really agree with you. I think even if he had just said climate change or global warming, but net zero is a political buzzword, and he's made it as difficult as possible to sympathise with him in this. Though also Camilla looked fantastic. That dress was beautiful.
And I respect you for that, because I agree with him on grammar schools as well, but I don't think it's his place to
that's the
comment.
thing. I agree with him on grammar schools. I think I'm conflicted, but I think I do.
Yeah.
But again, not his business.
Exactly. And I think we really have to accept net zero is going to become, over the course of the next 10 years, possibly the #1 political issue, not just in this country, but the world. And for him to try and paint a picture of it just being an established fact that net zero is what we need to do as quickly as possible. No. He's wrong, and he's got to leave it to the politicians.
But we all want to steward the environment. We all want to look after the environment, but we are in a cost of living crisis, and net zero is a rush target that's going to affect so many people's lives.
He's not worried about paying his energy bills. We are.
Yeah. Well, folks, even our frozen meals are not safe from the wokesters who dominate the far-left advertising industry, by the way. Over the weekend, the famous frozen foods brand Birdseye caused a storm after launching a new meat-free range of products as part of their Plant Age campaign. And while no one, including me, has any issue with offering products to unhealthy vegans, it was the food giant's 30-second adverts that really boiled my blood. Look.
Mummy, we sang a song today about chickens. Do we eat chickens?
We do, yeah.
We had Birdseye Green Cuisine dippers for lunch. They're made from plants, not chickens, and they're really nice. Why don't we have them sometimes?
Not sure.
Is it because you fear change and you're scared to try something new? Because if no one likes it, it will be remembered as the night Mum made that thing. Look, Mummy, a butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I actually saw this ad after our very own superstar panellist Dominique Samuels highlighted the propaganda, tweeting, "See the way the child has been positioned as the more knowledgeable and authoritative one because of what she's learnt at school. It's an extremely subtle way of eroding the authority of adults over children, and it's dangerous." Don't believe her? Just take a look at their second ad, blatantly attacking folk who may be sceptical as to what all of these so-called food scientists say.
Dad, we played hide and seek at Daisy's house.
Oh, wow.
And we had plant-based burgers. They're called Birdseye Green Cuisine. They're really nice, and they're better for the planet. Can we get them?
I'm not sure how much difference it makes, really.
Do you think you're more clever than all the scientists in the world? Or are you just avoiding the whole thing because life's too complicated as it is? Can we play I Spy?
Yeah, no, I love a bit of I Spy.
In a statement, the frozen foods giant said their new campaign is hoping to, quote, encourage customers to reassess their current eating habits with a move towards more plant-based proteins. Well, after this latest woke charade, I, for one, will never buy something from Birdseye again. And in the words of Dominique Samuels, they can shove their creepy plant-age propaganda piece where the sun don't shine. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson, do stand by because coming up, the crowning moment of the show as I nominate today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But next in Uncancelled, what do Americans think of the Duke of Woke? US political firebrand and former View host Meghan McCain reveals all on Prince Harry after his miserable UN speech. First, though, very quick look at what's coming up on a big show tomorrow night.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as the Tory leadership race is whittled down to just 2 candidates, it's now up to the Conservative Party members to decide on our next Prime Minister. But who should they choose? I'll get your verdict and the opinion of my political masterminds. Plus, we'll get the reaction from Conservative MP and Rishi Sunak supporter Mark Harper. And I'll break down the headlines of the day with my superstar panel, Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Daily Telegraph's political associate editor Christopher Hope, and broadcaster Ashley James. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where the world's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, members of the monarchy wading into politics, as we've just discussed, has long been a contentious issue in this country. But imagine the gall of Prince Harry to publicly slam his adopted country of America. Speaking at the United Nations General Assembly yesterday to mark the observance of Nelson Mandela International Day, Harry reeled off all his top woke hits. But most surprising was the way he compared the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine to the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Look.
How many of us feel battered, helpless, in the face of the seemingly endless stream of disasters and devastation? I understand. This has been a painful year in a painful decade. And from the horrific war in Ukraine to the rolling back of constitutional rights here in the United States, we are witnessing a global assault on democracy and freedom, the cause of Mandela's life.
Now, that was just 30 seconds of his speech, by the way, so spare a thought to those in attendance, there weren't many, who had to endure the full 30-minute spiel. And in a razor-sharp column for the Mail Online, which I just love, top Republican commentator, former host of The View, Meghan McCain, has asked the very reasonable question, is there any country that is good enough for the woke Duke? Meghan wrote, if the UK is a cesspool of racism and America is a contributor to an assault on democracy and freedom, what is good enough, Mr. Prince? If it is so terrible here and our constitution is so terrible, feel free to leave. Canada might be a better fit. And I'm delighted to say that Meghan McCain joins me stateside. Meghan, I mean, this speech, where do we begin? Where do we begin?
I mean, I was forced to watch it. I would never have watched it had my editor not forced me to. And I was actually just really shocked. The audacity of, Prince Harry, he is a guest in this country and he is someone that has not been universally beloved. He is not universally liked. He is very controversial, he and his wife, as I know that they are in your country as well. Yeah. And coming here in front of the United Nations and having a very deep misunderstanding of what our Constitution is. It's a live document. The Supreme Court exists to, vote and have many judges who analyze and discuss and figure out what they think is constitutional and not in the United States of America. He has a very basic misunderstanding of democracy and democracy in America. And again, he's not a politician. I heard your panel earlier. I don't really understand why Prince Charles and Prince Harry think that they are politicians. We have fantastic politicians in this country. No one cares what he has to say. Absolutely no one, except for maybe like extreme progressive wokesters. That is the very small minority. But I found it really offensive. And, Meghan is floating, running for president, which I just think would be absolutely hilarious because, America is a big place. She would have to go to red states with people who make under $100,000 a year. She'd have to go to state fairs. She'd have to meet people who love guns and love the Constitution. And I think their problem and Prince Harry's problem is that they're staying in these, city enclaves in New York and California, and they're not really meeting Americans. But I think they should leave if they hate it here so much, and he hates it here so much. He hasn't been here that long. But why do you want to be here? If America is an assault on democracy, and as I said in my column, and the UK is just this racist hellscape, you know, you should find a country that is more fitting to your needs. But this is not making fans of his. This is the second time he's trashed the Constitution publicly. He did it on a podcast last year. And again, I just don't really understand, if you're a guest in a country seeking political asylum from your horrible home country, why you would come here and trash our freedoms that we all hold so dear here. And he doesn't understand democracy in America at all.
No, and he certainly doesn't understand that the Constitution enshrines freedom of the press, which is obviously such a spectacular thing. I mean, what's so fascinating to me about this, Meghan, you know, look, I've covered Prince Harry for years, and when he was very popular in this country, right, it was once he had actually gone to fight in Afghanistan. And he was a proper lad, right? He used to read my old newspaper, The Sun, and he loved the fact that we used to have at The Sun, they don't anymore, they've gone a little bit PC now, but they used to have, you know, the page 3 girl on page 3, which was the woman, you know, with her boobs out. And you know, he was anti-woke. You know, him and his mates had a laugh about things. And he was also never known to be the sharpest tool in the shed. You know, he was a bloke that was very accessible to people, but he was certainly not an intellect, to put it lightly. And so what seems to have happened is he'd had his soul sucked out of him by Meghan Markle. And she is feeding him this woke mumbo-jumbo. And by the way, I've been told for quite some time she is writing his speeches, right? Because he doesn't know about this stuff. And the thing is, he doesn't look happy to me. He looks controlled by her.
Well, he's playing with fire with the stuff that he's saying right now. I think she's probably savvy enough to understand what she's doing. But, you know, the Constitution of the United States of America is sacred. And the whole purpose of the United States of America, no disrespect to you or your audience, is that we didn't want to be ruled or governed by a monarchy. And we just had the 4th of July. And, you know, at the parade I went to, they had George Washington impersonators. And it's a source of pride that our country is rebellious. And, you know, it's banned of misfits and all these things. And I think for him to come in and be a prince and someone who has never really understood or lived in, you know, the spoils and blessings that democracy has, it's just bizarre to me for him to come and just trash this country. But I'm telling you, friends of mine who were fans of theirs in the beginning, and this is just anecdotal, but I have a few friends that were very, very good friends of theirs, they are losing popular opinion here because it looks like they don't have any real job other than to make these weird speeches and to fly around in private planes at the same time lecturing everyone about climate change. And then B, it just seems like they just hang out with celebrities. So it's a very, to me, it seems like a very strange existence for someone who could have really invoked real change in their home country with their titles. But they're C-list celebrities at best here. They're hanging out at very bougie restaurants, going to very bougie places. Just like you would see, you know, an actor, or she is an actress, but it's very strange to me. It's a very strange turn of events, but he should stop if he has any sense at all, because he's going to start getting booed places. He did go to a rodeo, actually, that I attended in Texas. I didn't see him there, but it came out afterward that he had been there. And if he's going to go to places like Texas around people like me, you need to have respect for this country and the people who are, you know, God-fearing, gun-loving Americans who like being here and love our country. And he seems to want to do things like that once in a while. But I'm telling you, if he goes to a rodeo next week after saying what he says, he should expect to be booed.
Boo him. And they're booed in this country too, which actually said something. Look, the final thing I wanted to touch on, Meghan, was the despicable way that he hijacked the memory of Nelson Mandela. I mean, this was not meant to be about Prince Harry and his personal political views. And the idea that Nelson Mandela was against freedom of the media, for example, is just utterly ridiculous. And I think he actually denigrated the memory of Nelson Mandela by turning his day, what was meant to be his day, into an opportunity to take cheap political potshots. And I think he did a disservice to Mandela's memory.
I find it grotesque when people speak for the dead. People do it about my deceased father all the time. I find it distasteful. I find it, very tacky. And I think if you're speaking on behalf of one of the great legends in the world of all time, whose history and legacy will last for decades and eons, if not further, I thought it was distasteful. And, Roe versus Wade and democracy and all these things in our American domestic politics, which are still being adjudicated. We have midterms elections coming up. People are going to vote how they want. And by the way, my side is winning whole-handedly right now, if you look at any polling whatsoever, which is not his side. And I just think it's bizarre. And I think Nelson Mandela's family certainly deserve better. I don't know how they feel. I don't want to disrespect them. Obviously, they're, wonderful people. But I thought the whole thing was distasteful and bizarre and rambling. And clearly I hated it.
No, me too.
I was not quiet about it.
Me
And
too.
please take him back. Take him
We
back
don't
from
want
the
him.
country.
Sorry, Megan. We don't want them. We don't want them anymore. Look, Megan, it was an absolutely brilliant column. Really recommend people check it out on Mail Online or dailymail.com. Megan McCain, love speaking to you. Thank you so much. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Dawn Neeson, who's your GB? Who's your greatest Britain this Tuesday?
GB, it's Elon Musk for letting himself look like a beached one in his holiday pictures, therefore making every British man with their beer bellies and their saggy, horrible shorts feel comfortable during the heat.
OK, body fascist Dawn Neeson. Beached whale, he looks great. Oh, my goodness me. Calvin Robinson, your nominee.
Kemi Badenoch for her efforts in the Conservative Party leadership race, bringing common sense and normality to politics.
And Rebecca Reid, your greatest Britain nominee.
So mine's honorary because he's A, American and B, dead. But I would like to give a big shout out to Willis Carrier, the inventor of air conditioning.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And can I just make a very quick point? I catch taxis a lot of places. You've got to turn your aircon on.
Thank you.
At the moment, OK? It's damn hot. I'm not being unreasonable.
I asked the driver to turn his aircon on. He said, "Are you warm?" Thinking it's 39 degrees. Yes, I'm blooming warm.
I'm just saying, I always have it. They always put it on for me, so maybe it's about you guys.
There are just so many air conditioning refuseniks in this country, including, by the way, in government, including in restaurants, and it drives me mad. Greatest Britain winner, though, of course, it's Kemi Badenoch. What an incredible campaign. I believe she's the future Prime Minister of this country. Union jackass time now. Dawn Neeson, your nominee.
As we've just been discussing, my nominee is honorary again, Meghan Markle. I thought she looked stunning, gorgeous pencil skirt, lovely spike heels. But why would you spend $1,500 on a skirt to listen to your husband talk about poverty? Not a good look.
Because it's Meghan Markle. Calvin Robinson, your nominee.
BBC, Sly News and the rest of mainstream media for their coverage of the climate change issue, a.k.a. summer and hot weather.
Certainly no balance there, is there? Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
Mine is Boris Johnson, because yesterday he stood up and said we delivered on all of our campaign promises, which is just not true. Maybe it's not his fault if he didn't, but it didn't happen, did it?
What are you most disappointed that he didn't deliver on?
I mean, all those hospitals would have been nice. And why say you're going to build 6 new hospitals?
Can't build a hospital in 3 years. If the Tory party had left him in place, as my poll overwhelmingly shows the public wish that they've been able to do, he would have been there.
I could build a hospital in 3 years single-handedly.
Takes a while.
GBNews challenge.
Calvin Robinson, he's a double winner today because I've been so annoyed by the eco-alarmism of the BBC, Sly News, the mainstream media. They are today's Union jackass. What a fabulous superstar panel this sizzling Tuesday night. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much. Tomorrow night, really big show with the final 2 that are competing to be the Prime Minister of this country. So you're going to want to be here from tomorrow night, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Time now for headliners, so good night.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. What a day. Extraordinary temperatures with the first time 40 Celsius has been exceeded in the UK. Much fresher weather arrives now from the west. That's already been making inroads from the west during the day. South West England, parts of West Wales and Northern Ireland. Earlier on had much lower temperatures and some showers as well. Those showers are now making their way eastwards across the country, clearing the east of England close to midnight. And then, well, some showers or rain for eastern Scotland, a few shower clouds as well for parts of Wales and the southwest. But in between, clear spells and, Well, a little bit more comfortable overnight, but not much. 18 to 20 Celsius in the south, 14 or 15 for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And then a bright start for many on Wednesday, but a fresher start, certainly, particularly in the east, where there will be some sunshine around first thing. But as temperatures rise, well, the potential for some heavy showers and thunderstorms to develop. Central southern England into parts of East Anglia and the southeast, most notably. Still, 29 to 30 Celsius possible in the far east of England, but a much fresher low to mid-20s further north and west. Now, the showers that do develop could cause some issues on the roads, a lot of surface water and so on. Of course, they're falling onto dry ground and could be some very heavy downpours for a short spell of time, but they clear away overnight. And then an area of low cloud creeps into parts of eastern England, eastern Scotland by dawn on Thursday. Some further showers into the northwest of Scotland by this stage as well, but the best of any sunshine on Thursday at first will be across western areas. But as the day goes on, even the cloud in the east will tend to lift and break, and we'll see some brighter interludes come through here. A warm day in the southeast, 26 Celsius, but fresher feel, I think, for many of us. On Friday, sunny spells and showers. Saturday's looking very similar.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.